Are you serious? Are you serious? Breaking news out of Syria. Yahoo News is reporting that, and so is the Associated Press, that a senior Syrian rebel leader has been wounded in a bomb attack. But get this, his last name, al-Assad, the same as President Bashir Assad. Let's just, wait a minute. Hold it a minute. Are you serious? What? Is this a little bit of a diversion? Is there been confusion, or is this a diversion? Let me read it. A rebel military leader who was among the first to call openly for the armed insurrection against President Bashir Assad was wounded by a bomb planted in his car in eastern Syria. Rebels and activists are saying on Monday. Colonel Riad Assad, leader of the now sidelined rebel umbrella group known as the Free Syrian Army, had his right foot amputated following a blast late Sunday. Now that's the time we were hearing the news was starting to break out that President Assad had been shot by his bodyguard, an Iranian bodyguard, and had died. Had been taken to a hospital there in Damascus and had died. We're finding out that that same time we were getting that information, that this, from the other side, from the rebel side, that this colonel had his foot blown off. Now, according to the activists that are in town of Mahadin, where the attack took place, calls went to Assad's cell phone went unanswered. According to Lauki Amputated, a rebel spokesman confirmed the attack to the Associated Press by telephone, said the intent of the injury meant that amputation was likely. Though he had not received confirmation it had been carried out, he said Assad was in stable condition in Turkey. So he had been moved out of there and sent to Turkey. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. Assad, a former colonel in the Syrian Air Force who defected and fled to Turkey in 2011, became the head of the Free Syrian Army, a group of army defectors who were among the first to declare the armed struggle the only way to topple Assad. They will soon discover that the armed rebellion is the only way to break the Syrian regime, according to Assad told the Associated Press back in October of 2011, soon after he formed his group. At that time, most Syrian activists were inspired by the uprisings that had successfully toppled dictators in Tunisia and Egypt, and thought popular protests would bring about the same result in Syria. But the Syrian government's vast, violent crackdown on the opposition caused many to resort to arms. Today, hundreds of independent rebel groups are fighting at civil war against Assad's forces across the country, and many activists no longer bother to stage unarmed protests. The UN says more than 70,000 people have died. John F. Kerry, of course, the Secretary of State, says it's more like 90,000 or more. Now, we have got reports that 40,000 soldiers from the Syrian army, Assad's army, has defected. So, the colonel from the rebel side had his foot blown off. His last name is Assad. Is that part of the confusion about the President Assad being shot or assassinated? Or is this a diversion by the American media, since this story broke by the Americans, where the American media is silent? I hear the sound of silence on whether or not Assad was shot and killed. I mean, you'd think they'd either confirm or deny. Are you serious? Confirm or deny. But silence is deafening. But get this. Speaking of John F. Kerry, the secretary. Well, I told you he was in Iraq. Something biblical going on. Now he went to Afghanistan, unannounced. What's going on, folks? He's surrounding, there's a lot of, everybody's got a gun to everybody's head. He told the Iraqis, you better not let Iran fly any planes through your airspace into Syria, because there are Iranian planes coming through Iraqi airspace. John F. Kennedy went there, stuck a gun to Maliki's head, basically, diplomatically, I should say, and said, you better not let it happen. Then he gets on his plane and goes unannounced. He was unannounced to Iraq. He's unannounced to Afghanistan. But reports are, Reuters is reporting that in Kabul, Afghanistan, Secretary of State John Kerry paid an unannounced visit to Afghanistan today. Now, for talks with President Karzai, according to officials, with both sides hoping to stabilize the country before most foreign troops leave by the end of 2014. Kerry and Karzai will discuss a host of issues, including Afghanistan reconciliation, the transfer of security responsibilities to Afghanistan forces, Afghanistan elections, officials told reports. Karzai's government is trying to open formal negotiations with the Taliban, who have remained resilient in the face of the superior NATO firepower in the war, now in its 12th year. Karzai is due to travel to Qatar within days to discuss the peace process and the opening of the Taliban office for conducting negotiations. The trip comes after years of stalled discussions with the United States, Pakistan, and the Taliban. Commenting on Karzai's trip, the officials told reporters, I wouldn't want to overplay it, but I think that it's a very positive sign in another step to continued path forward, getting to some sort of reconciliation process. Tensions between the United States and Afghanistan have deepened in recent years over a range of issues, including civilian casualties during airstrikes, night raids, and the transfer of prisoners. I'm going to ask the real question. What's John F. Kerry really doing there? Because nothing on this report warrants his trip to see Karzai. What is he really doing there? I'll tell you what he's really doing there. He's telling Karzai exactly how the end of the Assad regime is going to be played out. Whether it's going to be an invasion, airstrikes by NATO forces, but he's telling Afghanistan, he's telling Iraq to send a message to everybody else in the Middle East that NATO is coming, or Israel is going to be part of it. But anyway, in every way, Assad's regime is coming down, fulfilling biblical prophecy in Isaiah 17, verse 1. The burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is no longer a city, but has become a ruinous heap. The battleground is in Damascus. I've been saying this for 2 years. I've been telling you this day was coming. It's in process. It has been even before the very first shot was fired. Let me say this to you. That's the reason Kerry's there. Now, the other question is President Assad dead? Or is it just Colonel Assad of the Syrian rebels injured in a bomb getting his foot blown off? Let's wait and see. Things are starting to move rapidly now. The sand is shifting, and Passover begins at sunset in Jerusalem. I'm Pastor Paul Begley. Give your life to Jesus Christ, because if you seriously, don't be left behind. This is a world at war. Jesus is coming soon. Give your life to Jesus Christ.